Hello, everybody. It's Romania Black, and it always feels good to crack that open. So, we are on episode 9 of Steins Gate, and the chaos theory is chaosing, and we have things to talk about before we dive into this episode. So thank you for joining me as we're diving deeper into the madness of Steins Gate. We're on episode 9. I've got some comments, mainly from episodes 5 and 6, and then talking about the English dub for episode 8, so we're just going to dive right into it, because I feel like we got lots to get through today. I just have that feeling. I'm like, oh, things last episode were just like setting up for chaos, and I was like, okay, we're setting things up. Things are scary. They're probably going to get even more scary as we go further into this season. So let's just do it. Virtuo Max for episode 5 says, I only catch it because of you using those words. Curious, kurisu, concern, cern. That part's interesting. So, I mean, if you were going to tell me that kurisu is tied to the word curious because of her curiosity and her scientific prowess, I could see that. If you were to tell me that CERN being connected to concern about the world lines, look, if we're painting Okarin as a possible villain, then maybe CERN is trying to prevent him from causing world chaos. Who knows? Who knows? Okarin says he's here for chaos, but then I'm like, are you really, sir? Or is that just your lip service? Who knows? Amber Sandra on the Discord for episode 6 said Okarin is a true one. As soon as the Yuri field opens up, nothing will get done. Just cuddle piles and Dr. Pepper forever. And there is science to do. And we're going to talk about that with the English dub for episode 8. But yes, Okarin is like, if he gives into the cuddles in the Yuri field, it won't work. HBanana7 for episode 6 says gyudon is very cheap and a standard fast food. It is the cheapest way to consume meat, usually around 500 yen, and as a result it is a go-to lunch for students and salarymen. So yeah, the fact that Amane had not had any in that timeline or that world line when she was eating the dinner with Okarin and Daru, I don't know if that suggests that she was in a facility that was more posh, or she was in the fact that one of the cheapest meals wasn't available to her is curious. But that was a different world line. Who knows? And then Armin for episode 6 says the satellite is still there because Japan doesn't want to mess with another country's secret data that might be in it. And since nobody claims it, they don't know from who it is. So I guess that does make sense. We're under the assumption that it's not a Japanese satellite because they're not doing anything about it. And looking about satellites online, I found that some can have toxic things, so it's risky for humans to go near them, and this might be one of the explanations too. Well, I'm sure they have hazmats around that could protect them, but maybe they're being safe, and I think it's more the former. They don't know whose satellite it is, so they don't want to mess with it. So is it CERN's? We may find out. Who knows? Then we had the dub for episode 8. Which, some lines that stood out to me, one was Braun going, do you actually ever go to class? Which honestly, I mean, it feels to us like it's been forever since Okarin's been to a classroom setting, but it's not been that long in the series. It's been over the course of a week. But yeah, that is a very good question. Kurisu, when they do the experiment with Moika, is wearing her lab coat. And I noticed that, and I was like, that's a cute little detail that she's wearing the lab coat. That's really sweet. Again, Daru says to ignore Okarin when he mentions Shining Finger, and she's not there because they switched world lines, as if it's a made-up phrase. So again, like we talked last week, from episode 1, we don't know if episode 1 was the first time that Okarin switched world lines, or if it's been happening since then. We don't know. We just don't know. And then Okarin is freaking out about Moika being alive. That part in the dub, when Okarin is having this moment of, is she alive or not? And she finally texts him back. J. Michael Tatum does a really good job of emphasizing the relief that Okarin has in that moment. He did an amazing job of acting that out. I thought that was really good. So then there's the dialogue about Mayuri helping Ruka into the cosplay. And Daru says in the dub, it's like Yuri times infinity. And I love Okarin's reply in the dub where he says that stammering blossoms Mars, not Venus. Like saying that it's a man, not a woman. Now, Daru's response to that, we're going to date ourselves back to 2011. The moment Daru said that, I was literally drinking tea and I nearly spit it out as I was drinking it. I was like, about me, like, oh no. Daru's response in the dub, and I'm going to say it because you need to know why I was like, uh-oh. Balls or not, I would so hit that. 'Twas a different time in 2011. 'Twas a different time. But anyway, I like the contrast of at the end in the dub when Okarin switches timelines and Kurisu compares him to Daru. I think it's important to note that Daru says something really crass and vulgar and not necessarily like that. And then meanwhile, Okarin, he's talking into his phone. He's like, the organization is attacking me with mind-blowingly adorable cosplay. Curves and colors are eating through my corpus colossal. And I was like, that's how you respond to that type of comment, not Daru's phrase. No. Again, Daru is single for a reason. And then I like Kurisu saying, give it a rest, you big drama queen. But then the best part about it is that whenever Kurisu looks over to Ruka, the choir like sings the same way it did for Okarin. Again, our bisexual power couple. And then Okarin is like, behold the pervert undressing the poor dear with her eyes. I love calling Ruka a poor dear. And then this part got my heart though. The dub, the way that the dub had Ruka phrase this just melted my heart when Ruka was explaining that they want to be born a woman, saying, I don't think it would be a problem if the parts of me you see, matched the parts of me that you can't. Honestly, that's the whole thing. I will never in my life understand transgender hate. I just won't. I have friends that are transgender. I don't understand it. When people are like, it's always the argument, I'm going to get on my soapbox for just a hot second. It's always the argument of, well, we can't have men going into women's restrooms. And my argument is always, nobody gives a shit what a sign says. If somebody's going to hurt someone, that little sign with a stick figure on it isn't going to stop them. But the parts that you see, the parts that you can't see, that shouldn't matter. It shouldn't. It's like, it's that person wanting to feel whole and complete and feel like themselves and have an identity that matches them. And intersex people exist. It's just, I don't understand it. I feel like when people make arguments against people that are transgender, they're really just making arguments against men. That's really what it is. And I'm like, you all, I think until you meet and know someone that's transgender and you talk with them about their life journey, you won't get it. And I do not know that experience, but it is heartbreaking. I can imagine it would be heartbreaking to not be able to be yourself and to not feel comfortable in your own skin. And my heart ached for Ruka in this last episode. And that English dub was just so, like, that's all that is. Ruka just wants things to match, to feel like it matches. And grumble, off my soapbox. Anyway, the episode ends with Okarin saying something has changed before. The question is, what? And again, Okarin, I don't think Okarin has figured out that it's not just that the past is changing. He's literally going to an entirely separate world line. I don't think that Okarin has realized that. So, anyway, that's what I got. But I'm super excited to dive into this episode and see what all we get. Y'all know this series has been crazy and I just can't get enough of it. So anyway, so we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to start. I've got my cream Dr. Pepper ready at the waiting. We're going to start episode 9 of Steins Gate. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. My God. Man, now the way that I sit in for this channel, Whiteboard Coon not only looks smaller in comparison, but I now look more like a teacher actually teaching than sitting down. So this may be an adjustment. This is the first time I've recorded using Whiteboard Coon and this new chair, so we'll see how that goes. But I feel definitely more teacherly with Whiteboard Coon at eye level than I normally have in the past. But oh no, we're off the rails. It's over. I'm like, Okarin's like, oh, in episode 9, going, did I do something I shouldn't have? Sir, that question you posed should have been one back in episode 2. There is no going back. There is no going back. It's a done deal. There's no going back. And I'm terrified at the repercussions of this episode, because this episode, things changed in a very big way. We went to a very different world line. And I feel every time, I feel like there is something to, I feel we can kind of combine the chaos theory angle that we've taken from episode 7 in the discussion and applied it with the butterfly effect. So, I mean, the butterfly effect itself, as we've seen it, is just this idea, kind of branching off of Teeter's comments, that we keep branching off different world lines as we go, and they just keep snowballing, which is essentially what we're doing. My theory is, because the number changes every time he uses the time machine in a way that alters the world line, and he jumps to a new world line, the number changes, so he's in a different world line. My theory kind of combines the chaos theory element with the butterfly catcher with the butterfly effect. So the butterfly catcher is essentially saying, yeah, we're changing world lines. They're never going to intersect. But Okarin is intersecting them, which is causing this whole chaos theory. The fact this episode has the same name as the last one. Oh my God. Chaos theory, homeostasis. Yeah, it's just impacting it. Like, Okarin is disrupting the homeostasis, because you essentially have all of these world lines that are parallel to each other that never cross, and Okarin is crossing them, which you shouldn't do. And I think what's happening is that he's jumping from world line to world line, but the world lines he jumps to are world lines, in my opinion, that are reflections of what they tried to change in the previous world line. So everything is changing, but it's not changing the one world line. He's just jumping to a world line that would be the result of the action they took in the previous world line. Again, like chaos theory states, you will never, ever be in the same world line again. Once you leave it, it's not possible. You can't go back. Done. End of story. 9. You don't get to go back. And I don't think Okarin realizes that. I think he's now realized the consequences of his actions have real big consequences, but I'm like, So we're going to get into this. This just was a mind-blowing episode. So yeah. So the match with Feyris Chan, not one that is a problem with the system. He's like, if we work on it, it could turn into a real time machine. And then that's when Feyris hears, the conversation. Now, Feyris, we don't exactly know what her deal is. I thought she was wearing a wig this whole time, but she might not be wearing a wig. The cat ears and the headband just might be something cute that she wears all the time. Might not be a wig. Might be her actual hair. How she gets the Pokemon Jessie spirals to sit like that, anime logic. That's all I got. But she talks about wanting to use the time machine. All these ladies, except Kurisu, all these ladies have wanted to use the time machine so far. Ruka wanted to use the time machine. Moika was coerced into using it. We'll talk about that. Feyris wants to use it. It's been an escalation of we're using the time machine in more and more dangerous ways. And I have an idea of what I think Feyris was wishing for. And we're going to get into that. But yeah. So we've got all these world lines. This is going to get crazy. But Feyris essentially finds out about the time machine and wants to use it. I think it's worthy to note that Okarin is not one to be seduced. I love that about him, where she tries to seduce him and the secret moves stir while gazing into their eyes. Okarin's kind of, oddly enough, a more timid guy. He's kind of just like, I don't know how to handle these advances from the ladies, and her trying to advance on him. Daru's a pushover. Daru is the biggest pushover. Daru is just like, instantly like that, tells her about the time machine, and Okarin's like, should we be doing that? No, you should not be telling people about the time machine, because it's going to alter all the world lines. But okay. He's like, do you think you can seduce me into giving up classified information? And then Daru instantly betrays him. So, that was entirely too fast. And then we have the messages to the past. Oh, chaos theory, homeostasis. Oh my God. So we go to the rooftop where Curry Sue is having this conversation with, I'm assuming, her mom, saying, why must you take it that way? I just wanted to. No, that isn't what I meant. I feel like she was having a conversation with her mom because she says she hasn't talked to her dad. However, the Curry Sue who hadn't been talking to her dad was from World Line B. So that may be a whole different thing. This Curry Sue may be talking to her dad, maybe talking to a brother, maybe talking to a friend. Don't know. I'm going to put World Line A up here. World Line A is where we started at, as far as we know. It is where Mayuri got the metal upa. That will be important later on. Also, Curry Sue died in that world line. Curry Sue died and doesn't exist. And the satellite crashed. And that's it. It would be interesting to know in the next episode if the satellite crashed in this world line. Because if the town is different, if the town and its entire structure is different, who's to say that the satellite even crashed? You tell me. But yeah, so as far as we know, in this world line, Curry Sue is having some drama with her parents as Okarin goes to hang up the laundry and do all that. What I really appreciate is Okarin saving on electricity by sitting in the darkness. I do like the symbolism of him sitting in the darkness. I think there's a symbolism with him hanging out the laundry on the line and it's white. So there is an air of innocence to the color white. And so, especially like surrender, innocence, we'll talk about the surrender part later. But I do like the idea that instead of the one episode where Curry Sue was on the couch and Okarin was sitting in the darkness, here he is the one sitting in the darkness and Curry Sue comes into the light. This version of Curry Sue is a lot more emotional, a lot more open to the emotions, a lot more flirtatious. Too bad we're done with that version in this episode. I actually liked this version of Curry Sue. I thought she was great in this. I really, really liked her interaction with, what was that on the screen there? What were they looking at? Were they looking at satellites on the screen there? Doesn't matter. She turns the TV off. And she tries to say she hasn't been crying, but she has. Here's the thing. Okarin, you know what? Okarin, if you were... And then we have her going to sit down beside him. I really like the body language because at first Okarin's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to empathize or how to help out in this situation, which I can relate to Okarin because I sometimes don't know if I should say something or what to do. And a lot of times if people are grieving or they're sad, they just need somebody to sit there. Somebody to listen. That's all they need. And so I appreciated that Okarin was just like, he's like, hey, if you ever need anything, I'll be here. I'll listen to you. And he was being such a green card, such a green flag. And I was like, look at you. And then he goes into mad scientist mode and ruins it all. And I'm like, my dude. He's like, oh, I can use it for all the grunt work as he talks into the phone. She's like, ugh. So then we go back to the locker room where Ferris asks about using the time machine. I like poor Mayuri is like, oh, you mean phone microwave, son? I like that Mayuri, much like Whiteboard Coon, refers to the microwave as if it is a roommate of theirs that they inhabit with. She's like, there's this big spooky lightning and it's scary. And she's like, it's like a time machine out of the movies. But she's like, I'm scared because it feels like Okarin is leaving me. Girl, he is. Girl, he's been leaving you every time. Girl, he is. That's the scary part of what Mayuri says. Like, the Mayuri from World Line A, that Okarin left her for World Line B, and we've just been escalating and escalating. And if you're telling me that this is slowly bridging them apart, the more world lines and more like the first, because here's what's going to happen. I don't think Mayuri's off, because what's going to happen is Okarin's going to freak out. He's going to be like, why did this timeline change? What did you ask for? She's not going to remember what she asked for because you've switched world lines. So is he going to have the text? Is he going to look at her phone to figure out what the text is? Will it even be on her phone? Probably not. So he's not going to know. And then he's going to be trying to track down the IBN, which we don't know where it's at. So it's like, I feel like everything he's going to be doing from here on in is going to be trying to get back to finding that IBN machine, which until this episode, I was like, oh, we don't have it anymore. Uh-oh, I thought we did. And so I feel like that's going to create all of this chaos, because if you don't have the IBN machine, what about John Teeter? What about this? Everything is called into question, and we should be concerned. It feels like he's leaving me. So we have our round table, and she talks about having school today, which, again, we've not had Mayuri go to school very often, so that's interesting for this world line. Daru, of course, is fangirling over her in the school uniform, surprising no one. And then I do like that Kurisu calls him out for being sexual harassment. Good job. She doesn't have to accept it. That's right. Mayuri is just incredibly kind, and so she says she's fine with it. We're having a round table. You're the one who wanted to bring me lunch. Again, what's interesting is Okarin, because this is a different version of him, is not totally aware of what he's asked her before and everything. He just calls the round table together to talk about physical time travel. No! You're already doing this much damage with just textual time travel. We don't need to try anything physical. Nope. That's a big old negatory. The moment he said that, I was like, I don't like where that's headed at all. I don't like the concept of physical time travel for this show, because we've seen the Jill Nanas. We've seen how that goes. You've seen the damage you can do just by sending a text message. Why would we want to send a body? Nope. And then whenever Kurisu is like, he says the words of me, Hyo and Kyoma, do they ever? Why are you ignoring my awesome topic? Such a 19-year-old thing to say. She's like, we can send messages to the past, but we can only send so much. And she's like, what are you going to do? Make yourself a human guinea pig? In the villain's tridecagon that I talked about last episode, part of the villain's tridecagon, I think it's either step 5 or step 6, is, it might even be step 5. Step 4 is to Nordaboy, which you have to go watch that video in episode 8's description link to get what that means. But step 5 was get into unethical science, which we've done now, which we are in. And then it's also to use yourself as a human guinea pig. That was a step in the villain's tridecagon, which Kurisu recommends Okarin do, which I'm like, nope. I don't like the idea of Okarin experimenting on himself. I am a little bit concerned that someone in this series, better not be Mayuri, or I'm going to be pissed, is going to get experimented on and become a gel person, and I'm not ready for that. So let's hope that doesn't happen. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But yeah, they said CERN is trying to use the lifter black hole combination to achieve time travel. The phone microwave probably works on the same principle, but the microwave doesn't have a lift. And he's like, well, where could we get one? She's like, I don't know. We're limited in the times that we can send email as well. I didn't remember that being a thing, that they were limited on times. I didn't think that was a thing. I thought it just depended on brawn and the electricity. But anyway, they're like, we can't be sure that this machine really sends messages to the past. We should deal with the issues before us first. So in this timeline, in this world line, they don't have the IBN machine. So in this world line, they've not figured out how to program the microwave time machine to do what they could with the IBN before. Or they haven't. Oh, shit. Okay, well, the IBN before, that means that if they don't have it in this world line, this version of Kurisu and Daru and them have not cracked the code to know about all the gel. Then why did you say you become a gel Okarin? They wouldn't have had that information before. Would they have? Interesting. Is that a plot hole? Is that a plot hole? Because the only reason they knew about the gel people was because they'd cracked the system using the IBN machine. But if they didn't have the IBN machine to crack the code and crack the system, how did she know about the gel Okarin if they didn't before? Did I stumble upon a plot hole with this series? Did I? Tell me down below if I stumbled upon a plot hole, because I might have, because I don't know how they would know that information without the IBN machine in the first place, unless they found another way to crack the code using some other technology. I don't know. I do like her line about saying that 99.9% of science is boring. And he's like, well, I'm a mad scientist, so the percentage is better. And she's like, well, I heard you like fail, so we put some fail in your fail so you can face palm while you face palm. Is that something from 4chan? What is that? What is that? heard you like fail. Okay. Oh, somebody else has researched this. What is that? In a fan sub. There was a fan sub, makes a reference for a non-Japanese. It says, today I just knew there is a fan sub version which makes some reference for non-Japanese people to understand. In the fan sub scene at 18 seconds, Kurisu said, "Yo, dog, I heard you like fail, so we put fail in your fail so you can facepalm while you facepalm." Then Okabe teases her for being an @channeler because she knew that meme. There's a fan sub joke. In the normal subbed version, Kurisu says, "This guy is hopeless, better do something about it." Okay. Interesting. I guess it's a reference. We'll see. But I like that she does get called out for being nerdy in that point, and he calls her 2-channel, which is great. So she's like, until I analyze the mysterious program on the other server, there'll be no change. And he's like, well, how's the IBN 5100 analysis going? And then that's when they realize they don't have the IBN 5100, which again, how they figured out the gel thing, I guess maybe it was just because they'd seen the gel nanas the first time, but they don't know in this world line about the people becoming gel people. They just know about the bananas. Maybe that's it. Did I not find the IBN 5100 here? It's scary. This is a wee bit scary of an episode because this definitely feels like as freaky as when we went from World Line A to World Line B. That's the crazy part, right? So before we go any further, we might as well talk. She talks about the butterfly effect, that we've only sent minor stuff and we've caused the world line to split. And little by little, this changes what was meant to happen. But one change causes another, and then they pile on top of one another. Yep. So she's like, let me ask this instead. Where was it supposed to be? And so they call the shrine. The dad says, he says it used to be here, but it's gone now. I wish that Ruka would have said where the dad saw it go to or who took it. Did Feyris take it knowing that they'd be looking for it? Or does somebody else in this world line have it? Like, we didn't see Amane in this world line at all. So did Amane take it in this world line? Here's the thing. So world line A, we need to go through these world lines, right? World line A started at the very beginning. They went to the lecture. That's when the satellite crashed, or it landed at least. The satellite landed in that version, and Kurisu died. And the metal Upa was purchased in the gacha game by Mayuri, and Kurisu died after maybe being stabbed, so we think. And then that's when Okarin went outside, sent the text message, and switched world lines. And switched world lines to the World Line B, where instead of the satellite landing, the satellite crashed into the side of the building. That was the main difference. So in World Line B, that's where we really started this series at, was World Line B. In that world line, there was the IBN 5100. It was in the shrine. Okarin and Kurisu took it back to the lab, and then Moika wanted to borrow it. So that was the big thing. And Amane wanted to know more about what they were doing. So that was in that world line. Then we were good up until episode 7. Up until episode 7, August 3rd, we were good. But then because of episode 7, they tried to do the experiment with the lotto ticket. That led to Okarin switching to World Line C. In World Line C, Moika is still a presence, and the IBN 5100 is still intact in World Line C. We're all still good. We're all still good as gravy. Everything's fine. Because the lotto ticket wasn't altering. Here's the thing. The lottery ticket didn't majorly affect the world around them because when it switched, the wrong numbers got to Ruka and then they didn't end up winning the lotto. So the outcome that they wanted didn't end up happening. So there was a discrepancy, but not enough to severely change the world. Not a big enough node was changed or altered, right? Kind of like, now, you would think altering Kurisu dying would be a huge world node change, so who knows? Who knows what happened with that? We'll see. But yeah, but in that point, everything is still intact. Then they were like, let's experiment again, only this time we're going to have Moika we're going to have Moeka this time send the text message, and Ruka was involved. So we went to World Line when the text message was sent to Moeka to change the phones. That is a change in the World Line. So in that World Line change, we go to World Line D. In World Line D, Moeka is around, but has not met everyone else. And Ruka is involved. Amane is still asking about Teeter. Now, was the IBN 5100 in this World Line here? We don't know. That was never brought up. It was never brought up, so we don't know. I have no clue. I would have to go back and scour that episode 8, to see if that ended up being the case, but we don't know. Now, the Upa is still on the couch during this World Line. Whether they go back and it's there or not is going to be crazy. And I think Mayuri asks a good question. We're going to stop at World Line D for right now. But Mayuri asks a really good question, saying it would be strange to donate a PC to a shrine. It would be a strange thing to do so. Who would do that? I would argue that Ferris in the past World Lines, if it was her dad's PC, donated it to someone and the shrine, maybe because they knew their dad, something like that. I don't know. Who would have done that? That's a big question. Speaking of questions, we get the Ferris getting confronted by one of the maids, who says, here's a list of 10 questions that I wrote to ask patrons, to ask the maids at the next event. And then one of the questions is, if you could go back and redo one thing from your past, what would it be? I'm like, what would you do, Ferris-chan? And she's like, well, let me think. I don't look into the past. It's the task of a cat-eared maid who brings everyone happiness to forge ahead. So the question is she going to still be at the maid service in the World Line they're in now? And is Daru still going to have a crush on her? Or are they just friends and there's not this Moe culture? We're going to see next episode. But yeah, she's like, this is Fairy versus Okioma. So he asks about an IBN 5100. Did your family give it to the shrine? She's like, my dad did have a lot of old PCs, but I don't really remember. Yeah. And she's like, Kioma, is this related to the time machine that you were talking about? Here's my thing. I think her dad died. Because when we go to see her house, there's a butler. I feel like a large portion of her dad's fortune was used as, because if you think about it, if she was a kid when he died 10 years ago and was 9, what would you do with that money? Well, you'd probably invest a large portion of that money into the Moe culture in that area, and that would tie into her in the maid cafe, and then it just came up from there as she grew up. So I think the dad died, and that's why there was the butler in the episode. But then once she changed the past, I think she changed her dad living. I think is what happened. And then that changed everything. But we'll get there. So World Line D, we don't know about the IBN 5100. But again, Okarin's trajectory of asking things is it went from a lottery ticket that ended up being messed up and they didn't win anyway, to changing a phone, which changed the trajectory of Moeka being with them and seeing them, which then they tried to inadvertently change Ruka's gender or sex, which, they were like, it's not going to work anyway. But it ended up changing the World Line into the World Line E, which is the World Line they're in right now, currently as we're talking, before we get to the end of the episode. And in this one, Moeka is they know about Moeka. They've met her before. So it's a little different from last time. And Ruka is known. There is no Amane in sight, so we don't know where Amane is. The IBN was at the shrine, but it was taken by somebody. Was it taken by Amane? Who knows? Ferris wants to change the past to something that happened 10 years prior, which I think is her dad dying. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, we have all of these games and stuff, and there's the maid cafe and everybody. There's all of the Moe things that are there. The metal Upa. And he's like, do you still want a metal Upa? And she's like, still? He was thinking back to episode 1. She's not the same Mayuri from episode 1. And the crazy thing is, because of what's happened in this World Line, in the World Line he's in now, she would never be able to get the metal Upa where she was in the first episode because that place doesn't exist in this world line. So yeah, Daru has all the bags with him of all of the gear. And in world line F that we're about to go to, he does not have those bags because he didn't go to this place. He's like, this was the choice of Steins Gate. I'm like, don't play with that phrase. And it's like, well, we wanted to come see Ferris. Why did she tell me to come to her house? Probably because it was a safe space. And so then Mayuri comes out. Well, what drug Mayuri out into the open is my question. Because what was that? I want to go back a little bit. I want to go back and see what it was. Yep. The limited edition thing before we could buy it. We want to see Ferris. Why did Ferris ask me to come to her house? And then Kirari. Who's Kirari-chan? I guess it's probably one of the maids that was trying to get them there. And he was going to go after Mayuri, but then Moika said the IBN 5100 because Moika is looking for it as well. Now, when he looks over and sees Moika, I wanted to look. Her phone is the purple phone. So this version of Moika in World Line E is not the same as D because in D her phone would have changed. So no, we're back to the Moika before. And he chases her down. And this Moika said FB said it was there. We still don't know who FB is. If it was Ferris, if it was somebody else. The Okarin seemed to know who FB was because that's how he got Moika onto his side in the first place. But we don't know if he was just saying that because he was like, she'll go along with this if I say I know them. But this FB person, we don't know who they are. And he's like, where is it? And she doesn't know where it's at. And he's like, how do you know I'm sure she'd make a great cosplayer. And he's like, how do you know her? You brought her to the lab. And then after Ruka sent his D-mail, they knew her again. Yeah. Here's the thing. Okarin is thinking it's this butterfly effect where all the changes are starting to add up. But I don't think Okarin is considering the possibility that he's traveling to different world lines and these are all just different versions of people that he knows, but they have different experiences, different things, which begs the question of, we're going to talk about this version of Ferris when we get to her. So anyway, they go to the top floor and they meet this butler. Of course, Okarin makes this big spectacle of saying, like, look at how much like ants they all look down below. And I was like, Okarin says these crazy unhinged things. And then I'm like, my dude, you're playing fate. You are trying to play God. This is not good. This is not good at all. And so she shows up. She's actually tiny. She's like smaller than Mayuri, which Okarin and Daru look insanely huge compared to her. I tried to see if anything in the room changed from when they changed time, but nothing did. Everything stayed the same, except I don't think Daru had the bags anymore, and it was a dad instead of the butler. So she explains that Ferris's family owns all the land around here. Her family's loaded, right? That's why she lives on the top floor of the building. Ferris's real name is Akiha Rumiho. And of course, Daru's like, don't ruin the illusion. I don't want to hear it. Ferris was the one who asked to bring Moe culture to Akaiba. So again, after her dad could have died, she asked to bring the culture back to Akaiba when she was a kid, when she was younger. But if her dad didn't die, she wouldn't have a reason to do so. Because there is a bit of, I love anime and manga, but there is an escape culture aspect to it. And if she was trying to do a little bit of escape culture, as a kid to help her grieve her dad's death, then sure, yeah, that would make sense of why that ended up happening. To spread Moe culture. And Daru does the big speech about it. She's like, keep it a secret, okay? With Ferris love, just like always. And she's like, oh, the IBM 5100. Well, before that, I want to change the past. It's nothing difficult. I just want to send one D-mail. Nope. So they make her 007, which surprised me. I thought that Amane would be 007. And at this point, Okarin starts to question whether or not we should send the message to the past. Because of all times, Okarin has at this point realized maybe this isn't a good idea. Maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Maybe we should be a little bit more cautious. Maybe, you know, maybe we should. You don't know. And they're like, well, you're the one who tried to send the lotto back number to make some money. And he's like, if I stop now, if this becomes any kind of clue. Here's the thing. The wings of Icarus, the wings of wax flying closer to the sun. He's like, I should stop now, but if I don't stop now. The thing is, there is a part of me that understands why Okarin would be so tempted. He's like, if we could find a clue and we do this and send it back in the past and the world line changes, maybe I'll be closer to find the IBM machine and refix what's happened before. The problem is, again, Okarin is not realizing there is no going back. You can't get back the IBN. It's not there anymore. That time, that world line B that we spent 5 episodes in, gone. Can't go back. Bye-bye. The world line C with the lotto ticket, bye. World line D, the one where Ruka had a transgender confession, gone, bye. I mean, those characters are still there, and they may still have those same thoughts, wants, desires, everything, but the circumstance and the lead up is completely changed. It's completely changed now. So, and Okarin doesn't realize that. He's just like, well, but the curiosity, I'm a mad scientist. So I want to see what happened in this. So they're like, are you sure you want to send it back 10 years? I'm sure. Now, honestly, if I had been Okarin, I'm sorry. He's like, I have a duty to know. And she says, oh, well, a maiden's private life is off limit to guys. I'm sorry. I would have said, well, fine, girl. We're not going to send it back in the past then for you. No, if you know how dangerous these texts are and how much they can alter the past, I don't care if she said, well, it's not your business. I've been like, well, then it's not your time machine and we're not going to let you use it. Oh, if I'd been Okarin, I would have demanded. She said what it was. But we'll never know. I think that it was to keep her dad from dying. And maybe he'll transfer to another world line where we find that out. But then if him asking the question to find that out, is that going to lead to her wanting to send the message again? And if this time he says no, then what do we do? So it's like, she has all this money from her family. She could have resources we didn't realize because she's loaded. This can make it very dangerous. This can make it very dangerous indeed. And I got a bad feeling about it. So yeah, they convince him to send it. Now, honestly, I loved this discussion between him and Curry Sue. It was flirting at its finest, where she just kept hanging up on him and he kept getting more and more polite to her. And I love that it ended up with him being like, hello, my name is Okabe Rentaru. And he's sitting there like in the kneeling position where he's like, I'd be extremely grateful. I was like, it did not take you long to be whipped, sir. And I like that Feyre says, do they like each other? And Mayuri and Naru are like, no, they do. They do. Uh-huh. So yeah. And then she questions, do I want to send this? It all changes. She sends it and it all changes. Mm-hmm. So when she does, here's the thing. We end up changing the line to like 409 and he comes back, but his head like really hurts in this moment. I feel his head really hurting is because we made a major shift. We changed something major. We prevented somebody from dying. And that's changed everything. And I think the bigger the change, the more it's going to weigh on Okarin because he's the only one that travels between world lines. So there's that. And so when he looks up, there's the dad. The dad is still alive. And then she gives him a hug. And she's like, were you talking to Keoma? He says, yeah. And he's like, I'll be on my way. Mm-hmm. So yeah. So they're all there. And then she's like, Ferris Chan's dad has this kind of refined air around him, doesn't he? Now, she's still Ferris, so not everything has changed, but some things have. And he's like, do you know about an IBN 5100? And he's like, oh. He's like, I haven't heard that name in ages. He's like, I'm looking for one, but I parted with mine a long time ago. And he said, well, did it end up at a shrine? But he's like, a shrine? No, I didn't. Huh. So in this version, the IBN machine did not go to the shrine. The dad parted with it. Here's my thing. I feel like in the previous timelines, Ferris parted with it. So because Ferris parted with it, it ended up in the shrine, but this has changed, and the dad parting with it does not end up, he probably donated it to somebody, and it's not in the same place, and Okarin's like, what the fudge? So again, they're walking back. Daru does not have the bags anymore that he once had. I love all of the electrical lines. They're all so different, and it's just like all the wires crossing, all the world lines crossing. Yes. Before Ferris sent her D-mail, I heard the IBM 5100 disappeared after it had been given to the shrine. But now the shrine never got it. Yep. So each time we send a message, things change. Well, no, each time you send a message, you go to a different world line. But that world line gets more and more entrenched in the change. So something may be changing. Oh, it's been changing the whole time. Without my being worried about it. No, it's been. It's been the entire time, sir. I do like the blue butterfly and the blue sand in the hourglass. So yeah, and I like that we get started with the ED. We don't get the ED until the very, very end. We've done something that can't be undone. Oh, honey, you did something that can't be undone in episode 1. This is episode 9. We're not in a good place. So she's like, I'm going to Nakano to buy an eye sword doujinshi. And he's like, Nakano? I want to know, out of curiosity, Japan, I want to know Akiba and Nakano. Like what is distance? Okay, so Nakano and Akihabara is about 25 minutes. So about 11 kilometers. Okay. Yeah, Nakano to there. Okay. From Akiba. Okay, so about 25 minutes. And he at first is like, well, eye sword. He's like, Kogayui. He's like, Nakano's too far. And then she's like, yeah, I wish there were a Toro no Ano here. And he's like, but there is. And when he points over to it, it's just a fan store. It's just a fan store. Selling fans. Blowing the different strings in the breeze. You know. Yep, everything's changed. And he starts looking around, and there are no maids. It's just the entire city front is completely different. Poor Okarin. It's those are like the most highly animated fans I've ever seen in my life. It was giving me Death Note vibes for sure. But yeah, he's like, what do we do? Like, I would get out of this world line if I were you, but that would involve you changing to another world line, so I don't know what you're going to... The thing about it is, I stand hard in my belief, I stand firm in my belief that what's going to happen is that someone in one of these world lines is going to die or be severely hurt, or something really shitty is going to happen, and Okarin's going to switch to another world line, but then he's going to try to alter the past so that the thing that happened doesn't happen, but he'll be in a different world line where that wasn't even a possibility, and then he's going to create like just a domino effect, and it just... This was surprisingly, it felt like a straightforward episode, but at the same time, it opens up a lot of doors of what was Ferris hiding exactly. We can only speculate if her dad was dead and she brought him back to life from 10 years ago. It felt like a very, I'm not going to spoil Link Click to you, but you go watch Link Click. But I'm concerned. I'm glad that Okarin is starting to figure out that things are going down and that there are some serious consequences. This is probably the biggest consequence of his actions so far. We literally changed the trajectory of a city. People's jobs, people's like interests, people's lives. This one change alone, not having that store there, has drastically changed the lives of millions of people in an instant. Because you have the people that worked there, their lives are different. You have the people that had to travel across town. What if some of them got in car accidents? What if some of them got hit by a bus? What if somebody like collapsed from overheating or exhaustion? What if they came back? Or like, what if because of the actions, because we're in a new world line where Ferris doesn't have the shops put in and all that, all of these different things have changed. And now we have to figure out, how does that affect everybody else? What about Moeka in this world line? What about Amane? What about Kurisu? You know, all this is, and he's going to get back and realize the conversation with Kurisu he just had on the phone before doing the time machine is no longer there. And also, if the IBN was not at the shrine at all, how does that affect their time machine? That's another thing. What if he gets to a world line where the time machine isn't working at all and he's stuck there? Would he develop the timeline again, the time machine again, to change things another time? And that scares me. But holy cow. Okay, so this episode was wild, was crazy, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts down below about it. So in any case, we're going to be doing episode 10 next week. I hope this new format works. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more of Steins Gate. Bye.